probably the reason that it's so cheap. Eligible, it's 9%, and it's up to 2,000. They have an excess supply. Jeff, could you please give us a 3-minute short version of how you compare the cost of a kid with a kid system?
What did you do?
Do you do drugs? Do you do drugs?
Yeah.
I'd like to.
So it's the one thing that keeps parents from having a conversation. Generally, what I say to parents is this shouldn't be one conversation. It shouldn't be the talk. But your kid's going to say, come on, it's not a big deal. Didn't you do it? Here's what's real important. That you're honest, though not too honest. If you experimented, it's fine to say, yes, I experimented. It didn't work out well for me, and here are all the reasons why. If you smoked a bomb, if you smoked a bomb the size of a Volkswagen, now's not the time to try that story out. But I think it's okay to say, look, as a kid I tried a whole bunch of things, but let me tell you why it didn't work. But also, this is equally as important, let me tell you why the ball game today is different. The marijuana today is vastly different than it was, more likely to be contaminated with something else, more likely to be much more potent than it was in the past. And when we talk about pharmaceuticals, it's a whole different ballgame. If you think about alcohol, as deadly as alcohol is, and it still kills more people than everything else combined, it generally takes 30 years to kill you. You have kids who are using heroin, particularly that that's laced with something else, that are dying the very first time they ever use it. So I think it's two things. Be honest, be open, talk about your own history, talk about how it didn't provide you with any benefits, but also talk about how the game has changed in terms of the drugs and the potential legal implications. And then make sure that you do everything you can to keep the dialogue open. It shouldn't be one conversation. It should be, look, if you go on, different people are going to ask you to do different things. You're going to find yourselves in situations. Come back and have the conversation with me again. There'll never be a judgment. There'll always be an open conversation.
It's very important that, the number one killer in America, the preventable cause of death, is smoking. That's number one. Number two is bad diet. And number three is alcohol. I mean, this is a big issue as far as people that are drinking too much. But who was the fourth person I said before? You the fourth, and then you're right after him, sorry.
I've been interested in this subject for 60 years. And I can say that this is a major problem this country has had. The government has been a major failure. What happened to the war on drugs? 50 years ago, we talked about a war on drugs. But we lost that war. That's none of the war that we lost. Now, the first line of defense against drugs is the parents and the family. I have a family, extended family of 50 people. We have probably about 25 young people. Now, none of them is on drugs. They're not on alcohol. They never get into trouble. So if the parents have to do the job, the parents fail. The government has failed, and parents have failed. Now, the only way you're going to stop this is you've got to cut out the supply. You're not going to get rid of the demand. You have to stop the supply. And the government isn't doing enough to stop the supply. They don't have enough agents to look into this. Okay? He's talking about the poppies in Afghanistan. Those poppies could have been destroyed. You know what they were talking about, supporting the farmers with poppy. They said, look, we'll give the farmers extra money and then we'll grow poppies. What happened to that? So if these poppies are bringing stuff in, the government failed. So we got to stop the supply.
Well, let me ask you a question. The heroin supply in America now is coming more from Mexico than it is from Afghanistan,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yes.
so it's all over the world from that part of the world in Afghanistan, but the stuff that's coming here is coming from Mexico, right?
Right.
Also, it could be grown in Afghanistan and work its way through, because nobody's driving from Afghanistan here, so they have to come into some of the.
And the stuff coming from Mexico, with the Mexican fly Canada, they fly the planes past the United States into Canada, and then they turn around and they head back to the United States, because we protect on the planes coming in, but we don't have enough protection on the planes coming back. So the drug enforcement has been a big failure also. Now, getting away from supply and drug enforcement. Another thing you have to do is to try to educate the children. Right? Now, another thing I want to say is that the government priority is not drugs. Right now, our priority is ISIS and overseas drugs. And the government is not doing enough about drugs. Now, what can we do for in school, try to assign a mentor, either in the school or outside the school. Every kid should have his own particular mentor. But that would help, because some of these kids have nobody to look up to. Nobody's interested in them. And that's why these kids are going to. Well, I think that's
All right, those are all good points. We don't, you know, it's not really a big disagreement as far as the idea of a mentor. Again, my big thing that I'm pushing in my mind, and, you know, is how do we get our all the social workers, caseworkers, people in all the not-for-profits we have to actually go into the schools to be assigned to each kid as when the teachers identify a problem. Now, the social workers, the not-for-profit agencies will say, we're already all overwhelmed already. We don't have enough resources to do something new. And the schools will all say, we're so busy doing our school stuff, we don't have to deal with all the, we don't have the resources or the time to deal with all these social issues. But that's why there needs to be a change in the mindset and the culture, because we would all save time and save money and actually address the problem better if we can figure out how to take our resources and focus them more at those early ages to deal with these problems on a one-on-one basis. But the teachers can't do it, they're overwhelmed. The social workers can't give up the stuff that they're doing already, so it's more of a management problem than an ideological problem. But we need to change the, everybody agrees. How many times have you heard the speech? It's better to educate a child instead of paying for a jail cell. It's so much more expensive per year for a jail cell than it is to educate children. If we can figure out how to readjust our whole thinking towards, this goes with healthcare as well, to prevention more, instead of treatment blown up to be a big emergency, we all much better off, but it's just hard to do because we run to the sound of the guns, as they say. You know, the problem right now is the crisis, the heroin. This man's first, then I think this woman's next, Louise, and then this gentleman over here, okay? 1, 2, 3. And we're running out of time, because you guys said 9 o'clock. It's 10:09.
We're concentrating on the school. The kids go to different places. They go to rec centers, libraries, churches, synagogues, houses of worship. I think it should be spread out. We should target those places as well. Because if we keep talking about it, and if they keep hearing it in all of these different places, maybe it'll start to sink in. It's not just the children that we have to worry about, it's the adults. Like this young man was talking about mentors.
Yeah.
We have to vet these mentors to make sure that they are not using or trying to get our kids to go astray. So we just have to really target all of these places. I work as a security guard at the library, and it's like I'm invisible. So they just talk. They talk about candy store parties. When Detective was talking about
The pill
the
party.
pill party, they just bring a bunch of pills and drop them in a bowl, and they just grab a handful and take them. Nobody knows what they got, and they just going for it. Then this is when the sex happens. People get sexually abused because the girl is passed out or she won't mind. This is what happens. And sometimes it's the boy that passes out and the girl saying, well, he won't mind. So it's going both ways. So I think if we target all of the places that our children go, then maybe we might have a better shot.
Thank you. You know, one of the big challenges the big challenge in government, the big challenge in dealing with is how many resources do you have? Nobody wants the taxes raised. Nobody wants to see more expense. Nobody wants to see more waste or fraud or abuse in government. So you have to figure out how to take the existing resources and use them more effectively. That's the challenge we face today, is how to use our resources more effectively, which is why I keep on pushing this structural problem of interoperability, the existing resources, how to use them more effectively. Louise?
Yeah, 3 quick comments. One, there is an initiative that is an evidence-based practice that Oregon and other states are using that could be considered at the federal level. It's euphemism for it is fight crime, invest in kids. And it's exactly what we've been talking about, that if you put money in, not even at the earliest school years, but even before a child is born. That is wraparound services around families before a child's born, home visiting programs when children are very young, and some parents need supports to prevent the trauma that you spoke about, the abuse that sometimes happens very early on in a child's life. The evidence in Oregon, when they instituted these programs, was that over a 10-year period, they reduced the number of juveniles in the criminal justice system and adults in the criminal justice system, and they reinvested their money in these early prevention programs, both in the early years and then in the school-based years. So it's something to think about when you're in Washington. Two, something else for you to think about. There is a paucity of services. Jeff spoke about it, Lisa implied it, that for treatment, and there is also a really painful paucity of services for mental health services for children and families when children first show some of the distressing signs of mental illness. I remember a case here in Nassau County where someone came to us and said, I'm very worried about this child. She was 8 years old and she was showing suicidal tendencies. And when we looked for a resource source in mental health, in a local mental health agency, several of them, they had waiting lists, even for children with suicidal tendencies. That should never be, that's horrifying. And we need more, I hate to say it, but we do need more resources, and the federal government has to look at that. And there are some innovative evidence-based programs that's being done by SAMHSA, Systems of Care. We had one in Nassau County.
SAMHSA is the
Substance Abuse, Mental Health
Services
Administration, bringing both together. Thirdly, I just want to underscore your thought about our doing more with what we have by not only wrapping services around a child and family, but by bringing professionals together to work together. Just as such great ideas have come out tonight, by our talking about these difficult issues, so can they be brought about if we bring together not only the professionals, but the natural helping systems in local communities, the leaders, the people who run the local candy store, or the people in the religious institutions, people that touch the lives of our children and families. Bring them all together and see what we can do.
Thank you very much. Whenever I think of these, I'm always thinking about like how to do something structural that can be replicated in a large structural way. So your idea of going in early when kids are first born is a fantastic idea. The problem is getting to those families and having the people to go to those families. When I keep on pushing this idea of the kids in the schools at early ages, you have a structure in place. It's called the public school system. And you have a captive audience. You have all the kids that are going to school. And you have people that are looking at all these kids individually. They're the teachers. It's just that the teachers can't provide the services. But the teachers can identify when they see a kid having a problem, which could then be shared with a central database in the school. And then you have to bring the resources in to deal with the kid. So it's hard. There's so many good ideas, like going out into the recreational programs, going to the parents. But we need to have it use our existing structures somehow that can be replicated throughout all of society and figure out how you can actually get to the people. Because you're not just getting to the kid, you're getting to the family as well. Because the kids in school, they're required to be in school until they're 16 years of age, and their parents have to be involved as well. So you see the kid, you have a problem, you look behind the kid, what's going on at home. You can actually get a caseworker for each kid, which is like the ideal idea. You can actually get to them.
But Tom, that's reaction. Teachers can also be used not only to identify kids that are struggling, but if you create a curriculum and a program, you have teachers teaching curriculum from K through 12. Now we're getting into the thing that you just said that's the most important and unsadly is the most neglected, which is prevention.
Yeah.
That's how we change the culture. That's how we get around what PJ was talking about and wait for this thing to live out its life expectancy. We start teaching them at a young age, and by the time they get to the high school, we're not identifying that many kids because they've already heard the message from kindergarten.
So Jeff is
I know what you said, I apologize.
I just said, I expect that to happen, I didn't say we should wait for that.
No, I know.
Jeff is gonna go, then this woman's dying to say something also. So Jeff, and then you, and then you. And we're gonna be closing up soon.
Tom, you use the term captive audience. In any given day, there's between 150 and 175 folks who walk out of the doors of the Nassau County Jail. Do you know what percentage of them get drug treatment while they're in there?
0.
Less than 5% on a good day, usually 0. Same thing happens in Suffolk County, and then we wonder why they're back 3, 4, 5 times down the line. We've got to be taking a look at our jails and provide treatment in those settings. The second thing relates to resources. I will tell you, and Lisa probably has this experience too, when Long Island is considered for grant applications, we exist in the shadows of New York City. So there's money that opens up nationally. The 5 boroughs apply, and because everybody thinks of the 5 boroughs as having much more significant problems around poverty and homelessness and substance use as opposed to Long Island, we tend to get short-shrifted. If you look at the data, it's really, really clear. There's a perception that Long Island is well off, well-to-do, and we don't have these kind of problems. So part of, what I hope your role will be is to provide a voice for Long Island and ensure that we're getting our fair share, because right now we're not.
That's a huge goal of mine if I get to go to the United States Congress, which is that we are huge net donors on Long Island. We give a lot more money to the federal government than we get back. I talk about this in every meeting. We send so much more money to Albany than we get back from the state. We send so much more money to Washington, D.C. than we get back. And we're subsidizing, in the case of the federal government, South Carolina and North Carolina and Florida and Arizona, and that's where all of our people are moving to. They're saying, we can't take it here, we're going to Arizona, we're going to Florida, we're going to North Carolina. It's so cheap here. Taxes are so low, look how big my house is, look how big the piece of property. But we're net donors to the federal government, and those states are net takers from the federal government. So we're subsidizing them to actually beat us. So we have to figure out how to change that perception. We do have a lot of wealthy people on Long Island, but we have a lot of poor people and a lot of middle-class people here that are struggling to pay their property taxes. So we have to figure out how to bring the money back from the federal government to help our local families. Okay, yes, finally, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, but you have to listen to this lady over here. It starts before school. It's the family. It's the loss of extended family. It's the culture that we don't have community and a village to help the parent. Call the Midwife was a show on TV. It's a British culture that the midwives were there for the women who were going through pregnancy, and the stresses on the family that were there were helped through community effort. And it's key to get, where do the triggers start? They start preschool, not just in school, not just the child, it's the parents. I had the child psychologist friend, God bless her, she passed away, but she always used to say to me, it's not the child, it's the parent.
Okay, you are the last two, and then we're wrapping it up, okay?
Okay, well, children do not come with instructions, and you do the best you can. My daughter is also a teacher, though, and there's not one child in the class this year who comes from an intact family. They're foster children, they're one-parent families, they're being raised by grandmothers.
Where is she teaching?
But she's not on the island, but,
It's a big problem.
It's terrible, but I am also troubled because tonight I'm hearing of heroin and heroin. What about the other things? Like cocaine, for example, is just a bad problem.
And alcohol.
So
Alcohol.
I would rather that you say drugs.
Well, you came a little bit late. We were talking about all the other things also. Yes, young man.
Well, one thing that I'd just like to say is that I'm a high school senior, and I have a lot of friends who, friends and coworkers who, abuse alcohol and who chug Robitussin for fun and have a lot of, issues having to do with this. I don't do that, and one reason why is because my mother was an alcoholic and she had problems with drug abuse too. But, from a young age, I saw her and I saw the way she acted when she had, when she had those issues. And she always made it her business to try and make sure that I knew that I wouldn't be getting anything good out of going down the same road that she went, and that I wouldn't be getting anything out of, turning to drugs or alcohol if I felt insecure or if I didn't feel confident enough. I feel like, I trusted her, and I trusted my parents' judgment. And, because that was kind of force-fed to me at a young age, I knew to think, kind of with an open mind about that and to not fall into certain categories.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. What are your teachers making about putting it in part of the curriculum? So that's good. So listen, everybody, this is very good. Obviously, we're not going to solve the problems here tonight, but I want to, this is what should be happening in politics, okay? It should not be about everybody yelling and screaming at each other and running nasty commercials on TV. It should be about talking about how do we solve the problems and who's got the better ideas to actually solve the problems that we face. That's what we should be doing in this country. That's what we need to focus on doing. And that's what I need you to encourage people in public life to do. So if you heard this tonight and said, boy, this is pretty good. I like this guy Suozzi, that he would pull something like this together with these smart people. Let's give them all a round of applause. Tell your friends and tell your neighbors and tell your coworkers and try and spread the word to other people. We need to try and get other people involved in the process to try and make things better. So if you like what I have to say, please spread the word. If you don't like what I had to say I really don't like Suozzi, he's no good, I should have listened to BMW, I didn't think Suozzi, I thought the other guys were good, but I don't like Suozzi, then I ask you to please just keep it to yourself. So if you want to help, please, these are